a soldier could peek. The stat fear became a constant. Trench combat.
The First World War transformed sniper warfare. Trench combat, long-range observation, and new optical technology combined to make scoped rifles one of the conflict's most feared instruments. Although marksmen and sharpshooters had existed previously, it was the widespread adoption of telescopic sights that allowed soldiers to hit targets accurately at much greater distances, and to do so from concealed positions with terrifying effect. At the outset of the war, the German Imperial Army was the foremost adopter of scoped rifles. The static nature of trench warfare, long stretches of exposed ground, observation across no man's land, and predictable enemy movement created ideal conditions for the German sniper. Word of their success spread quickly, and soon British and French units also began equipping and training snipers with telescopic sights. A good marksman using a scoped rifle could pick out and eliminate a man who merely exposed his head or shoulder above the parapet. That capability fundamentally changed how men lived and fought in the trenches. The presence of snipers altered everyday behavior in the frontline trenches. A casual glance above the parapet could be fatal. Soldiers learned to expose themselves as little as possible, to move with extreme caution, and to use the briefest possible moments to observe or fire. For those living under the constant threat of unseen shooters, fear became a constant companion. Snipers, hidden in well-camouflaged positions and equipped with powerful optics, were not only destructive but psychologically devastating. They turned ordinary tasks, fetching water, repairing defenses, peering out to scout enemy movement, into life-or-death gambles. As the danger of snipers became widely understood, countermeasures developed rapidly. Troops and engineers devised tactics to locate and neutralize enemy marksmen, and camouflage units began to specialize in deception designed to reveal sniper locations. The idea was simple but clever. Tempt the sniper to take a shot at a seemingly vulnerable target, then use the bullet strikes to triangulate his position or to observe the shooter directly. One of the most inventive and widely used deceptions was the papier-mâché dummy head. Papier-mâché, layers of paper combined with glue or starch, was a cheap, lightweight, and easily molded material that had been used for dolls, props, and carnival figures long before the war. Frontline camouflage workshops, staffed by sculptors, artists, and repair crews, began producing highly realistic dummy heads to be mounted on sticks and briefly lifted above the parapet. These heads were modeled with great attention to facial detail. The planes of cheeks and brow, the coloring of skin, small shadows around eyes, and even stubble or hair, all intended to look authentic when observed through a rifle scope. Realism mattered because the observer peering through a scope saw an enlarged, magnified image. Small imperfections that might be obvious at close range could disappear at a distance, while tiny realistic touches would help sell the illusion. To up the realism still further, some decoys were fitted with rubber surgical tubing attached at the mouth and carrying a cigarette stub. By gently blowing air through the tube, the camouflage team could give the impression of a man actually smoking. The faint movement and the slight curling smoke visible through a scope could be irresistible bait to a sniper seeking an easy shot. Once a dummy head was placed and, if successful, hit, the defenders had several options. Bullet holes in the decoy could be used as observation data. By registering the angle of impact and combining information from multiple dummy heads or observation points, teams could approximate the sniper's location using triangulation. Alternatively, some heads were equipped to receive a small periscope. After the sniper fired, a soldier could peek through the periscope lodged in the dummy to try to catch sight of the shooter as he revealed himself to take the shot. When the sniper's approximate position was narrowed down, artillery could be directed at that sector, or counter-snipers would attempt to engage him directly. The British are credited with originating the dummy head technique during the early phases of the war, when their troops suffered heavily from skilled German marksmen. It was born of necessity, a creative, low-cost solution to the problem of an unseen, lethal adversary. Once its effectiveness became evident, other armies, including the French and Russians, adopted similar measures. What began as a pragmatic tactic quickly became a standard element of trench defense. The Paper-Mâché decoy is a striking example of how peacetime crafts and materials were repurposed for war. Items associated with entertainment and domestic life, modeling techniques, theatrical props, even surgical tubing, were adapted into lethal counter-sniper tools. That repurposing carried moral and psychological weight. The same ingenuity that produced art and toys was used to lure and expose men to death. For soldiers in the trenches, the line between reality and illusion blurred. Every head that appeared might be a living comrade, a corpse, or a crafted trap. That uncertainty amplified the fear that permeated frontline life. Beyond the immediate tactical impact, these developments reflected larger changes in the nature of warfare. The First World War intensified specialization. Camouflage units, sculptors turned into military technicians, and reconnaissance combined increasingly with deception. The rifle with the telescopic sight exemplified the shift toward precision killing at range, while the Paper-Mâché head exemplified the complementary move toward counter-precision tactics, inventiveness designed specifically to defeat the new threat. There are also ethical questions embedded in this history. Deception has a long lineage in war, and the dummy heads fit within accepted wartime ruses, but they underscore a darker reality. Technology and creativity can magnify the capacity to kill. The ingenuity that produced detailed decoys and the surgical finesse of marksmanship were tools that, when married to the machinery of war, resulted in increased suffering and a new kind of psychological warfare. In the end, the story of First World War snipers is not merely one of improved weapons and sharper optics. It is a story of adaptation on both sides, of how concealment and observation, accuracy and deception came to define an era of conflict. Scoped rifles made killing at a distance more reliable, while Paper-Mâché heads and other ruses made it possible to find and fight back against the hidden shooter. Together, they revealed the tragic inventiveness of war, where human creativity is marshaled both to save and to take lives, and where every technical advance produces a response that reshapes the battlefield and the minds of those who fight.